Home Alone by Blood Red 287. I don't think I have to say this, but I swear this story is completely true. So this happened a few years ago. When I was in 5th grade going into 6th grade, I started piano lessons. I absolutely hated playing piano. The organ and piano player at my church offered me free lessons because my mom helped out a lot. He was a very nice man. I just hated playing the piano. My family had bought an old piano from someone my family knew, so I would be able to practice for an hour at home every day. One night near Christmas, when my brother was at a friend's house and my parents were at a dinner for my dad's work, I was practicing piano. The only lights that were on top of the piano, so I could see the music, and the dim lights from the Christmas tree. The piano was against a wall with my back to the door. To my right was the hallway that leads to the bedrooms, and on my left was the living room where the tree was. There was no sound other than me occasionally hitting a key. I started having this weird feeling of dread when I looked down the hallway. That's when I started hearing something was creeping me the fuck out. It sounded like breathing. I kept trying to convince myself it was just a fan, but I was still unsure. I sat at the piano and started really practicing, just in case there was really a person down there waiting for me to walk down the hall. I had seen a few horror movies, so I knew not to move near a sound. After a few minutes, I told myself out loud that I should get some water. So I stood up and walked to my kitchen. It was on the other side of the hall. I didn't have a phone in 6th grade, so I would usually use my parents' or house phone. The second I stood, I heard a small gasp-like sound coming from the hallway. I pretended not to hear it. In the biggest drawer closest to the floor, my dad kept a few of his smaller tools and nails and stuff. I remembered seeing a large box cutter type thing. I grabbed it, then I grabbed the house phone that was in the kitchen. I accidentally grabbed the phone too hard, causing me to hit a button that let out a beep. The sound is never really that loud, with it being nighttime and me being home alone. It was almost deafening to me in my panic state. I then heard a low grunt-like sound coming from the hall, then footsteps. My fight or flight instinct kicked in, mixing with my adrenaline, and I ripped open the sliding back door and ran to the side of my house. Basically flying over my fence, dropping the box cutter in the process. I ran as fast as I could down the block because I could hear him trying to get over the fence. I looked back like an idiot and saw the silhouette of what I'm guessing was a 6-foot-tall man chasing me. I started screaming bloody murder while trying to call 911. I was too far away from the house for the phone to work. That's when I saw one of my neighbor's lights come on, and I ran over and started banging on the door. I quickly looked to see where the man was, and he started sprinting the opposite way. My neighbor let me in, called the police, and helped calm me down. I'd somehow escaped with my life, and only a few minor scrapes and cuts on my knees and feet. When the police got to my house, they figured out how the man got in. My brother had accidentally left his window cracked open, and the man was able to cut open the screen and open the window the rest of the way. They also found a rope, duct tape, and multiple knives on the ground of the hallway. My neighbor across the street had a camera facing the road because people had been stealing mail. The police looked through the footage and found one man who would watch our house for a few minutes, every few hours, for a week. He knew I was home alone that night. For the next few weeks, they had cops watching our house until we moved. They never caught the man. But he is the reason I now have severe anxiety and paranoia. The Gifted Furby Turned Creepy by Demonic Pie 13. When I was a kid, my grandma had toys in her house for when us grandkids would come over for visits. She had many toys for us to play with, but at the time, I loved her Furbies. I would play with them all the time when we would go over. Well, one Christmas, when I was 5 or 6, I got a Furby for Christmas. This Furby was from my grandma, and it came from her house. At her house, the Furby worked like a normal one would. I was excited when I saw it. Well, after opening the rest of the gifts up with my mother and my brothers, I was wanting to play with my new Furby. I sat with my mother and grandma as we turned on the Furby. Nothing. The Furby didn't do anything. We thought it was odd, and turned him off and on again. Still nothing. So then they changed the batteries and turned him on. I gave it a go and tried talking to the Furby. It complained about it being too loud. We all thought that it was odd. Everyone quieted down. We turned the TV off. I tried again, talking to it. It then complained about it being too bright. So we turned off the lights. Once the lights were off, it worked fine. It creeped everyone out. It had never done this before at my grandparents' house, ever. After that day, I tossed him into my closet and only pulled him out once to show an ex how creepy it was. After that, I forgot about him. A year or two later, my mother was cleaning out old toys I no longer played with. She got rid of that Furby because I didn't play with him because of what was happening with him. I still don't trust Furbies to this very day. The Yoshi Cart by AwesomeOOFER. So when I was maybe 6 or 7, I got this Mario Kart RC car for Christmas. What happened was that we got one of Mario. When I tried to use it, it didn't work. I was pretty sad, but my mom said that we can go back to the shop and get another one. So we went and we asked for a replacement. However, all of the Mario ones were out of stock. They said there was a Yoshi one still in stock, so we got one of those instead. The cart actually worked, and I was happy that I at least got it over nothing. Everything was fine for months. I would always leave it in my wardrobe, but at morning, I woke up to it being right next to my bed. And I know that this wasn't a prank, because my mom told me that one night, she heard the sound of it driving. She went to go check it. The RC remote was at the top of our wardrobe, completely out of me or my brother's reach. And it wasn't even on. It was just the car that was on. She ended up turning it off and going back to bed. The Yoshi toy kept appearing next to my bed. We always closed the wardrobe, and when the toy appeared next to my bed, the wardrobe would still be closed. Eventually, my mom gave it to her boyfriend. It would stay on a shelf, just staring. Nothing ever happened with the toy being at her boyfriend's house. Whenever I looked at it, it would just haunt me of the memories I had with the toy. This isn't the only experience we have had, as my mom has had other stories of us being asleep, hearing footsteps in our room, or some sort of shadow entity in the hallway. But this one is the one that I have experienced, and I will never forget it. The Black Isles, a Scottish paranormal encounter by nobraggingrights. My mother and 2 older brothers would visit my auntie and 3 cousins around Christmas. The whole family would get together too. Uncles, aunties, you name it. Anyway, They lived up near Inverness in Scotland, in a place called the Black Isles. It's actually in a place called Cromarty, but Inverness is more well known, so I'll say that. The Black Isles were said to be used back in the day as a place where witches would meet up on Halloween and perform satanic rituals, animal sacrifices, that sort of thing. Whether or not that is true is another story. I'll get to the story now. We all rented out a holiday home just down the road from my cousin's house. It had multiple bedrooms in it, so perfect for a lot of guests. Me, one of my older brothers, and his friend from Africa were staying in one room. They were fast asleep. However, I was not. I woke suddenly, and I didn't know why. I scanned the room with my bleary eyes. It was very dark. I couldn't hear anything but the snores from my brother and his friend. The door to the room slowly opened with a creak. I swear to God. I froze with fear. I didn't see anything enter through it. But as I tried to scan my eyes around the room, I started to see shadow-like figures pulsating and hovering around the two adjacent beds, hovering and pulsating over my brother and his friend. There must have been at least 3 of these figures. The third one stood over my bed, although this apparition didn't have any human-like features, except for maybe the shape of something human. I could feel like it was staring right at me. I decided then the only course of action was to turn over to face the wall and go to sleep. The morning after, I told my experiences to a few of my family members. They joked it might be witches that performed those rituals in the past. Generally didn't believe me. Except for one person, my brother's girlfriend. She told me she experienced something as well. She was only sleeping next door, and she told me she felt like someone sat down on the end of her bed in the night and said she could feel the weight of someone on her legs, but nothing was there. Very frightened by this, I decided to read the guest book to see if anyone else reported anything else weird, unusual. Nothing of the sort was there. I'll never forget what I saw that night. If you're ever up near the Black Isles, or stay in the same holiday home I did, just be aware of any strange figures entering your room at night.